no one's coming to save you. You have to save yourself. The successful people leave clues behind. Follow those, right? It's a roadmap. It's like having a coach. And I went into tech. So I went from driving an S-Class in November in the winter to taking the subway to a BDR role after having a ton of sales experience, working with like much younger people, but having no experience. And that was probably the most challenging time of my career, to be quite honest. I want to forget my past, but that past actually created who I am today. I'm not the first person to say this, I won't be the last, but your network is your net worth. Here is like what I feel is the golden nugget here.
Skylar Newton, what a treat to have you on the podcast. I cannot wait to dig into your journey from crawling out of a proverbial hole to getting into car sales and eventually into tech sales and making it all the way up to your current role as director of sales at SentinelOne in one of the best categories in tech, cybersecurity, making 7 figures. You're living the tech sales dream. And I'm excited for this conversation because the audience, if they pay attention and listen all the way through, is going to learn what it takes to build an incredible tech sales career. Skylar, I'm so excited to dig into it. But first off, how's your day going so far? What's a typical day in the life?
Hey, Chris, thanks so much. And thanks for the opportunity. I love your passion and what you're doing for people who, are trying to find their way. And that was me and probably you at some point. My day is always awesome and it always starts the same. 4:30 wake up, admittedly 4:15 alarm, snooze, 4:30 wake up, quick hygiene, a little bite and off to the gym. I meet my trainer, knock out a workout, and then I'm in my flow state. I'm in the zone. So how about you? How's your day?
Today, I set the alarm for 5:30 a.m. I did snooze till 6:30 a.m. Okay. Now, tomorrow, I'm considering getting up earlier because we know that the world hasn't woken up yet. And what a precious time to take care of our health and generate energy, set our intentions, and make progress on some of the deep work that actually moves the needle that isn't even urgent, but it's the most important. And so, but that's interesting, man. You were up. So what was it? Was it 4:15 and you snoozed to when? Like, when did you get out of bed?
So 4:30. So usually it's almost strategic, right? 4:15, the alarm goes off. I use the Apple Watch because then it doesn't wake up my wife. There's no alarm going off. It's just a dit on your wrist, right? It's actually a nice way to get up. And then I actually usually use that 10 to 15 minutes to give gratitude. Actually, say thank you for everything. Today's going to be a great day, and whatever affirmations you use or you set. And then I get up and get after it. Usually get to the gym by 5:20, knock out an hour workout. After that, usually have a call with my admin on the way home from the workout, just to level set for the day, understand what's a priority. And then, key, on the way to the gym, the drive is a podcast like yours. And there's a couple others I'm really enjoying right now. And I use that time. I quantify that commute to the gym by way of education, right? Educating myself.
So let's get into a question that I expected to ask later, but I want to pull forward, which is, what is the role that health and wellness, what is the role that is played in your success getting to this director level, absolutely crushing it in tech sales? I got to know about that.
Yeah, I think, I've always been into athletics, right? Since, a child and played sports. But I think within the last probably 5 years is where I really understood and realized how critical it is for your day-to-day and more so for your mental health. So it really, allows you to get the endorphins flowing, right? Clear your mind. You're usually, hopefully not on a device or your phone when you're doing some form of whatever exercise, serves you. And it really sets you up for your day mentally and physically, right? And I'm a consistent guy. Like I like consistency. When things fall out of consistency, I tend to, I could feel anxiety creep in when I'm outside of routine. So it's also about routine. Like my days don't change, and they don't on the weekends either, really, if I can avoid it. I mean, I do have, a wonderful wife and 3 boys, so sports or tournaments, whichever, can get in the way. But even on Saturday, Sunday, maybe I push back the alarm a little bit, but, try to keep it consistent 7 days a week.
We'll talk about balancing a beautiful family with outlandish career success later, but I had to start out as we get into your journey to 7 figures in tech sales at SentinelOne. I had to start out with, back in your 20s, you fell into trouble and yet you crawled out of a hole. I'm curious, what encouragement do you have to the people that feel like they got off track and they're behind?
Yeah, that's a big one. I think right away, immediately what comes to mind is that you can make a change anytime, including right now. In fact, the most powerful change to be made is immediate. I learned that from, there's a bit of a story here. We might not have time this session, but I learned that from Tony Robbins, right? Take massive, immediate action now. And I live by an acronym, which is TNT, today, not tomorrow. There's another story where that came from, wasn't mine, but you adopt things along the way as you interact and hopefully come across great leaders or mentors that help you along your journey. If I may, the other one would be, and this might be aggressive for some, but no one's coming to save you. You have to save yourself. Does that make sense?
I 100% agree. That hit me the other day, as I build this Tech Sales Accelerator business and the podcast and everything. And it's a grind, in your role in sales, especially as a leader, you're dealing with so much, so many challenges. And it's on us to tackle the challenges and show up at our best, and no one's going to save us. So 100% agree with that. And I think Tony Robbins once, I was listening to a podcast, he said, I don't care what you did 5 years ago, 5 months ago, 5 weeks ago, 5 days ago, 5 minutes ago, or 5 seconds ago, you are not your past. And as you said, it's time to take massive action. And I was talking with you about a Pablo Picasso quote, that don't put off until tomorrow what you wouldn't be comfortable dying having left undone. And that's why we're here right now. The audience doesn't realize it, but behind the scenes, we connected and we took massive action quickly to be able to have this conversation, knowing it's an important one to have that's to encourage people to change their direction, change their trajectory, and open up life-changing opportunities. So amen to what you said, man, about taking action. It's never too late to turn things around, and also just to take ownership and realize no one's going to save us.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean to say, no one cares about you. It's just no one can do the work for you, right? Like you can't buy a 6-pack, right? You can buy almost any, or maybe you can, but you can buy almost everything today. But, you can't buy, health and wellness, for example, and, only you can save you. And, I used to actually, I think to round out the answer to the question is, I used to, and maybe still am, like there might be someone who listens to this podcast who knew me in very troubled times, right? And I still am vulnerable to, they don't know me today, but their thoughts about who I was. And maybe it was challenging to, I guess, really own that and own that it's okay, like you said, to come from a past that may not have been your best, right? And put yourself out there and really, find a way to change that and change your trajectory. I think we're all within reason, capable of making change. But again, yeah, it takes action. It takes, small actions consistently daily, and you start building and compounding. And it's the little wins, like I referenced this before, but, like the, start with making your bed. That's the first one of the day from this speech from that, the general, I think it was.
Such a good speech.
Yeah.
Success is earned. True success is earned. You got to put in the damn work, excuse my French, not just today, but for weeks, months, and years. And that really compounds, but no one can do it for us. Like I see so many people, like top speakers, trainers, authors, sellers, and they put in the work time and time again. And even the other day, Skylar, my mom like noticed I was stressed and the reason I was stressed, Skylar, is I felt behind on my work. I made commitments to myself that I'd produce a certain like YouTube video and do certain things. And sometimes it is a war of art, man. Like I mess up a lot and it can be painful. It's not glorious producing that content. But I was behind and she could feel it. I was depressed. And partly I'm grateful that I was, because that was an internal signal like, Chris, let's go. Let's get this going. But my mom noticed it. She's like, is there anything I can do for you? And I said, no, Mom, I need to do the work. And to your point, it's like, and, we got to do the work.
I love hearing that. Because, pain is the best teacher. That's really, along what kicked off my journey of change for sure, is I knew that I was hurting. This was not the right place for me, and I need to make a change, and I was capable of making change. Now, luck is a factor, right? Luck counts and exists. And I also had some luck along the way. But I'm glad to hear that you recognize that for sure, that you need to do the work.
Is there anything else you'd add in terms of how? Go ahead, sir, Skylar.
Oh, sorry, just a bit of a lag. I was gonna say success, like to your point, success also leaves clues, right? What I mean by that is, right, the actions and the activities, on a daily basis, which we've already discussed, right? Health and wellness, or how you operate your business, or how you manage your forecast. And we're talking about success, right? Like the successful people leave clues behind. Follow those, right? It's a roadmap. It's like having a coach.
Tech sales is an amazing career path where you can make as much as doctors and lawyers without having to cut anyone open or work ungodly hours. Looking back 10 years later, having personally started out in tech sales at Oracle, then moved to Google Cloud and a startup, and now fully launching into entrepreneurship, I can say with confidence that tech sales transformed my life through the income that it produced, the skill development, the connections, and the self-development that I unlocked along the journey. If you're someone who wants to strategically build your own six-figure tech sales career without wasting valuable time and earnings potential, then consider Tech Sales Accelerator and our 12-week programs as your blueprint. Our partners are breaking in and crushing quota at top companies like Oracle, Google Cloud, VMware, and Salesforce, leveraging our in-depth video content, one-on-one coaching, community, and network access. And we'd love to partner with you too to accelerate your own success on this path. If you'd like to learn more about Tech Sales Accelerator and our programs, then feel welcome to book time at my Calendly link, linked in the description of this video, and we'll walk you through all the details. Or just download my free cold calling system that's going to help you crush the phones quickly, also linked in the description of this video. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Skylar, can you share your journey into car sales? And maybe pain was your teacher at the time and your inspiration. You looked at the reality of your life and you had felt the pain and made changes, but you got into car sales. And I know that catapulted you into tech sales. So I'd like to start with the car sales part of your journey. Can you walk us through how that evolved?
Well, for one, you know what they say, right? Like do something that you're passionate about or you're lying to. And at first it wasn't selling. It wasn't the sale of cars. It was cars. I think one of my first jobs outside of, working as a laborer, construction, kid at 13, maybe whichever age it was being a lot guy at a car dealership because I wanted to be around cars. So I was like washing cars after school. And then, I saw the salespeople at the dealership. Like I love seeing the hustle and the drive. And then I just always asked a lot of questions, and upon asking questions, understood, okay, hey, I learned about commission and I learned how that worked. And then, oh, wait, this is uncapped. Like you can sell as many cars as you can, right? And so like, the wheels started turning, and I naturally just always liked helping people, right? Being of service. So, those two things sort of aligned. And I think I was, at the time I'd moved up through the dealership, whatever, I'd done everything, detailing and service and parts or whichever. And I was like, okay, I'm taking my shot. And I begged them to hire me as a sales guy. I was 19 years old. Like, no, not a chance, right? Like this takes maturity and experience and all these things. And finally, I convinced a different dealership after, months of applying, to give me a shot on my first Saturday. Again, this is where luck comes in. I sold 3 cars on a Saturday. I was 19 years old. I was taking the bus there. And on Monday, the owner hears about this and he calls me up to his office, and I'm like, oh, okay. Is this going to be termination, or, what is it? I had no idea, right? I didn't know how successful selling 3 cars in a day was. But anyways, to wrap this story up, he just asked me, he's like, hey, you got a bright future. Do you need any money? I'm like, what do you mean? Do I need any money? Yeah, that's why I'm here. He's like, no. Like, I will give you some money to help you, like kickstart if you're, struggling a little bit right now. So anyways, it was a great experience, and, certainly a place that I would recommend still to this day, to learn sales skills.
So Skylar, paint a picture of the heights you reached in car sales, because I thought you were making 6 figures driving a Benz, but even then you realized there was a higher upside in tech sales. So tell us where you got to in car sales, and then what went down to then pivot you to tech sales and open that door.
Sure. Yeah. At the peak, at the highlight, when I reached my goal, I was driving an S-Class and a CL 550 and a CL 63. Great. But my first ever demo was a Pontiac Sunfire, which I had to earn. And my first demo at Mercedes was a B class, if you know what that is. So again, it's not all, champagne and roses, if you will. But there was a lot of struggle, and then, a lot of luck, but it's like anything that we've already discussed, inclusive already in our conversation, right? With perseverance, with the right people that come through your life. And when they do, attaching yourself to good leaders, like that is critical. Even today, I still look for that, and God bless, I have that currently. And then setting goals, right? Like, setting goals, but reviewing your goals, if not daily, if you will. So I set a goal. I got recruited to Mercedes after being at some other dealerships. I set a 5-year plan. I achieved that plan. And, impetus at the same time was, I was making 6 figures, working 6 days a week, having to work Saturdays. And I was looking, okay, what's my next step? They want me to go into management. And I just realized that, that wasn't the path for me. There was more for me. And at the same time, I had an informal mentor who had just gotten into tech. And then I had a client at Mercedes who was a senior vice president. And he kind of alluded to, and again, back then I was younger, so I was, largely financially driven. He shared with me how much he was making, and I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, wait, what? That's possible? People make that much money? So, then from there, I eventually had to share the news with someone I deeply cared about, a mentor, but also my leadership team at Mercedes-Benz, letting them know that I'm leaving. And I was supposed to go into a general manager position there. And I went into tech. So I went from driving an S-Class in November in the winter to taking the subway to a BDR role after having a ton of sales experience, working with like much younger people, but having no experience. And that was probably the most challenging time of my career, to be quite honest.
Now, I've got a bunch of questions to ask you, but one, it seems that you were drawn to tech for the higher upside financially while working less hours. Because in the car sales, you'd done great, but you had to work your you-know-what off. Yeah. And I'm curious, I'll go in this direction. Looking back now, why has working in tech sales been like winning the career lottery?
Yeah, it's funny because going back to the, question about falling into some trouble in my teens and early 20s, I used to be ashamed, and maybe sometimes that still creeps in. And I also have my own executive coach. And, they help me understand that I want to forget my past, but that past actually created who I am today. Right. So even the troublesome times, or the grinding it out 6 days, 7 days a week in car sales, right? That built who I am and my work ethic and my resilience, I think, or helped anyways. And then tech sales, it also inspired me. So largely financially driven, but being on the curve of the world's latest technology and working with the brightest people, really inspired me as well. And of course, the lifestyle, right? Like travel. Who doesn't want to travel, meet new people, solve problems and challenges? So, those were definitely some of the other factors surrounding financial gain, of course.
So Skylar, I've got some people that I work with in our Tech Sales Accelerator program. One just transitioned from car sales into fintech. And I'm proud of Ethan. Another is in car sales now, and we just connected on a call, and he's looking to make the transition. And you help a ton of people do this yourself, but I'm bringing it up because it's cool that people in our audience are trying to do what you did.
Yeah, and this is real. Like I have the proof, or they're
like, guys, you could become like Skylar. Like I want to be like Skylar. So I mean, that's pretty awesome. So Skylar, let's get a little bit into the nuances of how the transition happened. We understand the upside and what pulled you to it. And clearly, based on what I've heard so far, there was a mentor. He showed you how much he made. I think he was a VP. There was someone else though, right? I think there were a couple mentors, and I'm like, did they showed you the way, and then did they warm introduce you? Like how did you actually open the door?
I'm not the first person to say this, I won't be the last, but your network is your net worth, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's critical to put yourself out there, have conversations you wouldn't have with your barista at the coffee shop, on the subway, or whichever,
Yes.
Just be open-minded and positive. You never know what you're gonna get from it or give. Like it's great to strive. I strive because I love personal and professional development, but you also have to have impact and give back. And that's why I'm doing this with you right now. But where I'm going with this is I had a sort of informal mentor, a customer at Mercedes-Benz who was a senior vice president, right? He did make an introduction for me, and that is where I landed as a BDR. But I had sort of a friend of mine who, like, we lived together, like after college, who had also recently made the transition, but before me. He actually, he showed me the ropes. Like our offices on my first day, we took the subway together. It's like, okay, here, I'm going to walk you there. Here's your office. This is a true story. This is how I ride the subway or whatever. And I'll never forget that first day because, I walked into this office, which was unfamiliar territory. This was pre-Google, or like maybe right around the Google time or whichever, where like they had this kitchen. I'm like, what? Like food's free? You have drinks? That was crazy. Because like at a car dealership, you have terrible, no offense, but you have like warm coffee, maybe at best. And I think they charge you for it. Right? And so that first day I had to learn all this technology. They gave me a laptop. Like I could use my cell phone at that time. That's about it. I wasn't tech savvy. And I remember after the first day, I was like worn out, had anxiety, sweating. And I called my dad and I said, look, I need a ride back to Mercedes. He's like, why? Like, I'm going to pick up my car. This is not for me. And he's like, son, I cannot let you do that. You made a commitment. You need to see this through. Give it at least a year. I know you can do it. And that changed my trajectory forever.
Thank God you listened to dad and he was there for you and you stuck with it. You got to hang in there because there's no question this path that like what you've achieved is incredible. And so isn't that encouraging to someone in the audience who might just be starting out and they're struggling and they're thinking about giving up? Hang in there, keep going.
I mean, unless there's a very valid reason, don't give up. It's day-to-day wins. What I knew is that I had the drive, and in this case, I had the experience, meaning sales experience. And very quickly, I applied that and, rose through the ranks and had success because I was committed. That was my number one goal, is to grow as a BDR, but get out of that role into an individual contributor role, which, much like you, I have helped people do as well, break in and then convert to, an IC. And, it's tech companies are forward thinking and they will reward that type of behavior. They will reward winners, right? You don't have to, stay in that role forever. And you can even, skip roles if you're willing to do the work like anything else. It's never too late.
So What led you to take the BDR, SDR entry level role when you had closing experience? And maybe it was just because the companies would not take you for anything other than an SDR or BDR role. But I ask you this, Skylar, because you might have come across people that say, oh, I have a master's in education, or I've closed in this other industry.
Sure.
I should be a closer. And I'm like, I have seen some people transfer from entrepreneurship and different spaces to AE, but they're in maybe an SMB AE. But I say don't skip out on the foundational role, and the skills you develop as an SDR are powerful and you'll take with you your whole career. Anyways, let me stop. I want to hear your thinking at the time.
No,
you took the SDR or BDR role.
You're 100% right. And I just coached someone I went to high school with, held a leadership role in a completely different industry. I just coached him through this, and he just started as a BDR and he's crushing it. But,
Wow.
He's late 30s, early 40s, right? So it was, for him, it was checking the ego at the door. Like, he was, again, in leadership already. And now he's, making calls for AEs that are probably, a few years younger than him. And there is nothing wrong with that, to your point, because that, again, is where you're learning not just resilience or, technology. You're learning a lot about yourself too. And I think that's really important. And you're building that sort of framework to become a successful account executive, right? Like, that is the best training ground, whether it's how to expand your sphere of influence, how to not be afraid to talk about money when you're qualifying, how to manage up, meaning manage up to your AEs, or, more importantly, director level. There's so much to pick up in that role. Don't stay in it for too long, but definitely don't skip that step.
And when you say manage up, I love that term and I tell people about it all the time. But for those who don't know, what does managing up look like?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of jargon, I guess, in any industry. Forgive me. Meaning, managing above you, right? Whether you're a BDR and it's your AE, or whether you're, a VP and it's your SVP or CRO, but knowing how to speak to executives is how I'd probably summarize it. Not only knowing how to speak to them, knowing what they want to hear, and not telling them what they want to hear, but delivering it in that fashion, which is usually very concise.
That really is an important skill, Skylar, and it's cool to hear from a leader like you that is a skill you need to develop, and ideally you learn it from the ground up as an SDR. And I talked to a customer acquisition rep leader at AWS. Their cars, customer acquisition reps, that's their term for SDRs. And man, is it a nice role over at AWS. They pay pretty well. You get some equity. It's maybe a role on steroids. But he told me, as I talked to different leaders, like, what do you look for? He said, a lot of these SDRs don't have business acumen and they don't know how to manage up. And so it's important we talk about these things. Even for the aspiring SDRs trying to break in for the first time, they can maybe even show in their interviews how they might have empathy for their leader and ask questions that indicate they will be managing up, and that they want to come in and not be the type of person that has to be babysat all the time, but is actually going to contribute to the peers and to their manager. And one example of managing up that I saw, Skylar, was a rep I was working with. They asked their manager, who was traveling, if there was anything they could do to help them out as they traveled, or take something off their plate. Could they help run a team meeting? And so that's one tactical example, but is there any other examples you want to add? And then Skylar, I'll guide us to another tangent, but any other thoughts on managing up, tactically speaking?
That's a great example, because what you're doing is separating yourself from the average or the below average, which is when you have to, as a leader, ask your report to, hey, you haven't updated your forecast, right? Like, that's the total opposite.
Yes.
You don't want to have, when you're managing up, you want to be proactive. One question I love, absolutely love, I use it myself, and it's not a tactic, it's just a great question. Like, hey, I'm struggling with this, or hey, I'm super excited about this opportunity. Can I get your guidance? I love that one. Right? Or it's like an SDR who's trying to convert into an IC role, and not to their reporting leader, but maybe to someone else they've connected with at a conference or something in the organization. hey, can I get your guidance? Here is my plan in terms of career succession. Like, what are your thoughts? Instead of, you don't want to come off, entitled or, too aggressive. So I really love that one.
Man, we are cut from the same cloth, Skylar, because I use that with prospects.
Yeah.
I ask, and it makes them, I feel good. It's like, oh, in a way, propping them up a bit, like they're providing guidance. So great one. But not that you don't want to like fluff them up too much, but I think there's something about that word. Can I get you looking for your guidance on our next steps? Like, of course, I'll usually propose an idea of next steps. It's my job as a seller to have some control over the process and be prescriptive, but also asking for their guidance. And so, not that I'm looking to open up a whole tangent on it, but I want to affirm, like, I love that phrase. And thank you for the tactical examples of how we could use a question looking for their guidance in the context of working with our leaders in our current roles as sellers. So I wanted to ask you, let's see, where do we want to take this next? Yes, I know exactly where I want to take this, Skylar. From a mindset perspective, what are some of the mindset principles, the pillars that have helped you endure this long on what is a really volatile and sometimes challenging path?
That's a good one. That's I love that question. I'm putting some extra thought into it because you can go in many directions.
Yes.
One, again, like I've really found myself, if you will, in the last, say, call it 5 years. And what I mean by that is, my strengths, but more importantly, my weaknesses. And, I really think gratitude is so important, right? Like, even my wife the other day was saying, wow, through all of our struggles, I never thought we'd be here. And whatever here is for you, right, is great, right? Doesn't mean, you have to have all the things or, materials. But I think starting off with, like, your dream position, you're in your dream position now that someone dreams about, or this was my goal years ago. Let's not forget that. And let's use that as continued motivation, right? Whether, you've always strived to get into leadership and now you're here and, you want to get to CRL level or beyond. So, like, no one likes to be around someone who makes things difficult or someone who has a negative mindset. So just gratitude and be positive, right? I have tough conversations. In fact, I love tough conversations because we're making progress if we're having those, right? So I will have I'll get terrible news, maybe about a deal or whichever, and have a tough conversation. And 30 minutes later, I'll have a fantastic conversation. So it's really trying to keep that equilibrium, stay positive, be grateful. And again, I'll go back to, while you're striving for yourself, like, keep positive impact top of mind too. Like, how am I impacting the people around me, the people I'm leading, the organization, right? Pay it forward. So
positivity helps us endure. Being able to stack even small wins and celebrate those along the journey amidst all the failures and rejections. Being conscious of gratitude, which it really does roll into positivity, but thank you for that reminder. That's powerful. Being conscious of how we're impacting people and serving, whether it's our teammates, our manager, our customers. I feel like you're connecting us with opportunities to find meaning in our work that will help us sustain. And I realized that you gave me a great insight that as a leader, and you help hire leaders and you've seen the thought process around bringing on leaders. You mentioned that you consider the leader to be in their family, and like having a good family life can contribute to their ability to be resilient, and that connects to relationships and being in a loving environment. But I didn't expect to go here at this early on in the conversation, Skylar, but it was an interesting insight I'd never heard. Can you expand on that concept?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in summary, I think, to answer that, your last question there as well is, these are just all stackable wins throughout, your day that add up to success, right? Going all the way back to how you start your day, physical, mindset or physical wellness, mental wellness, right? All those things, you need those things to be able to have gratitude and a positive mindset, right? That goes into diet, right? And hey, our industry, right? Like you could be out for steak dinners and wine every night. Like you have to have discipline too, but just like anything in life or this world, right? It's a collective, right? And all the small activities add up. To answer your question about, I had this, I'm assuming, not to put you on the spot, let's just assume, I'm sure you've been to a President's Club, right? And for anyone who's listening who hasn't, it's the ultimate goal. I've never really, although I was financially motivated to get into this industry, I've always found that I'm not chasing the dollar specifically in a deal, right? Like if I'm doing the right things, the money will follow. So what I mean by that is if you want a T4 or W2, 2 million, 5 million, 1 million, 500K, whatever it is, right? Also set that goal. Hopefully your company has a President's Club. If not, push for it or make your own somehow. But, President's Club is such a special place because when you talk about managing up or getting face time, you're with all of your executives. And not only that, usually they're partners. And that reframes everything, right? You get a really intimate perspective on how these people operate, right? And I would be remiss if to your point, I think that people do observe all those other aspects, how you carry yourself, how you appear, your physical health, but also not just like your family or relationship, but does this person have a healthy, solid personal life that enables them to execute at the highest level required to do this job? Does that make sense?
Yes, this is a great insight. Like, and a leader like you, and maybe hiring another leader or even a seller is gonna, if you can, figure out if this person has a good personal life, they have the right habits to generate energy, the good health and well-being, and maybe even, like, the point is, Skylar, I think it's a big positive to have a loving partner and a healthy relationship, because that feeds into your success and to have a family. But of course, I don't currently. I'm working on that. But I just think it's an interesting insight. If there's anything else you want to expand on, feel welcome. But you just remember, you said at President's Club, you got to acknowledge, like, the partners are invited for a reason, because the partners help contribute to their partners' success in sales.
Well, for one, I am lucky to have one of the most, many people have amazing partners, right? And, my partner really did impact and still does daily, my success. I would not be here without her. That doesn't mean for people who haven't found their partners yet, you can't do it. So I just want to be clear, you can't have.
Absolutely. That is not what we're saying.
Like, even if you're, solo, like, hey, does this person, do they have the right daily activities and values, right? Are they healthy physically and mentally, which we've talked a lot about. But also, how, when you're on these trips, like, you can see how these people, including yourself, like, interact with your partner, right? And not that that's a defining decision maker, but it's just another really interesting data point and a clue of success.
Yes.
If the person is successful in that partnership, I would just say there's a higher likelihood that they're successful in other places in their life. Hopefully that makes sense.
Skylar, let's get tactical and talk about a subject that I really wanted to get to. The audience is going to love.
Okay.
Getting from SDR to AE.
Yeah.
It's been a while for you because you've risen up the ranks and been on this path for a bit. Yeah. But what were some of the needle movers, maybe in terms of skill set? Because we talked about mindset, but maybe skills, your ability to be productive and organize yourself, just factors that helped you move from SDR, rock that role, and get to AE.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to managing up, right? Like, I remember, being in that office and being a little bit older, but having, sales experience and maybe a little bit more experience in life just because of my age. But I remember just taking AEs out for lunch, and they're like, you're the new guy? Who are you? You want to buy me lunch? Right? Because, there's not a lot of money in an inside office. Like people aren't making, $500,000 or $1 million. So, that was one way, right? It's just like, I treat it the same way as a sales cycle. Like I'm expanding my sphere of influence, or, building champions for Skylar, right? Because if I have an AE that I'm crushing leads for, quality leads, I'm connecting with them outside of the day-to-day. When the opportunity arises for, me to be considered to move into an AE and I need a reference, right? There's a champion, again, related to a sales cycle. That's one tactic. Another is just pure work ethic. Like I've never been the smartest person in the room. I don't intend to be, but I just know that I will outwork you, or, I will outwork the process. Like I remember specifically being in the office, like we started early because I was in Pacific time and I in Eastern time patch. So like I would get to the office by 6, an hour early, had to be there by 7. I remember one night I was having such a great day. I think I piped like 10 ops, and the qualifications were very high at this organization. And my leader happened to be in there because he also had a strong work ethic. And it was 7 p.m. So I've been there for 12 hours, but I was done my calls, but I hadn't entered everything into SFDC, right? I hadn't piped all my opportunities yet. And he literally looked over the desk. He's like, Skylar, go home. And I'm just like, Jeremy, I can't. That's not my DNA. I will go home. I'm going to pipe this last opportunity because tomorrow morning when I show up and you run the dashboards and I run the dashboards and the whole team sees, like, I want to be number one. So, just winning is super important to me.
Winning's important, and it's a lot of fun, isn't it? And man, you were doing something that I heard someone else who was an SDR trainer at, a trainer at Oracle, and didn't just train SDRs, but account executives, even leaders. And he mentioned feeding the beast, which is updating the CRM like Salesforce for your leadership to give them the data to see what you're doing. Because, Skylar, a mistake I made early in my career is I said to myself, I'm just going to do my job and I'm working hard, but I wasn't updating Salesforce accurately. And you probably cringe to hear that, but it was a lesson learned that you need to keep it up to date. And it is almost like a whole nother thing. And it's just a key part of the job. You got to feed the beast. You could do the work and be setting meetings, but things need to be accurate to roll the data point up to leadership and make them look good. And so anything else you want to add around feeding the beast?
Yeah, for sure. A couple of things. First of all, again, going back to hey, I had a Sunfire before an S-Class. I was one of the worst offenders as an individual contributor. The reason I got away with it, which leaders hate, is I was super successful. So I was crushing my quota, but my Salesforce was a disaster. So there's a learning curve, and it's part of growth and experience. So don't beat yourself up, but do start getting it right. It's short-term pain for long-term gain. Spend a Saturday if you have to, because you're so busy in the field, right? You got to make sacrifices. Let's not forget that, right? If you have to take a couple hours on your Saturday or Sunday to go do all the admin you need to do to show that you're not just a quota-crushing road warrior, but you actually know how to manage a business, that's what we're looking for, right? So another tip in terms of preparing yourself for your next role is keep an ongoing document, however you like to keep yourself organized, of your wins. Like I'm tracking my wins, right? I can reference, it's like my own internal resume that I'm going to present when I'm up to bat for my next role, right? Here are all of the things I've done. It's easier to keep it updated along the way than going back and sifting through Salesforce or etc. So that is one tactical tip that I would definitely leave anyone, actually.
Yeah, that's a great tip, to collect your wins and be ready to, celebrate that with your future boss, to be able to pull out the right stories as proof points that you have what it takes in interviews. That is a pro move, Skylar, and too many people, even seasoned sellers in their career, haven't been taking the time to do that. So thank you for that reminder. And from a productivity perspective, because let's be real, productivity is important. You need to be able to execute. What you talked about in terms of habits and cultivating our well-being, that generates more energy, which actually does make us more productive. So we already kind of talked about that. Other thoughts I have are being able to coil the spring, and I'm stealing that from a guy, Connor Murray, in our space that
I like
he
that.
does some good content, but preparing beyond the 9 to 5 pay line. Let's just say, like, you might start your day sooner, which you did, but imagine like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. pay line. You want to be customer facing in any sales role, reaching out, engaging, having conversations that can lead to opportunities and revenue. But outside of office hours, doing the prep work, like practicing your talk tracks, your cold call script, your objection handling, so that when it's game time, you're not caught practicing on the court, and building out the contact list and having the data to execute. So what I'm saying, Skylar, is that I'm sure you've done this, is you do prep work outside of office hours so you can execute in your call blocks and reach out. And also, you made a great comment about Salesforce, like spend a little time on the weekend so you're not spending your game time, like high value time that could be customer facing on that. Is there anything else you want to add, though, either on that thread or just productivity in general, that helped you win as an individual contributor?
Certainly. And again, I'll just repeat, I'm not the first person to say this, of course, but the things that I've learned along the way is also going back to, there's many ways of saying this, but like today, not tomorrow, or what I can do now within 90 seconds, like do it.
Yeah.
Don't push it off, right? If I need to schedule that one-on-one, or I need to send that email, or, I need to create that quote, if you're an individual contributor, right? I would say just, say procrastination, updating your Salesforce. Like, it's not the favorite activity. I get it, right? But procrastination is a killer for sure. The other thing is, if your role allows for, like, even if you're an SDR, I am a massive proponent of getting face-to-face, right? So yeah, is an SDR or BDR going to be able to book a flight to go get in front of a customer? Unlikely. But what you can do is figure out and prepare for your next role. Figure out who's in your local geography. Like, are you a 100% channel company? Go start taking it upon yourself to go meet with local partners, even though you're not an IC, to say, hey, wanted to reach out. I work for so-and-so, right? I understand we're channel partners. I'm gearing up for my next role. I just want to get an idea of, how your business operates and how I can, be of service in the future. So, and same thing for, internally, find people that live in your city. I'm just constantly, looking to have conversations. And, when you talk about preparing for talk tracks, et cetera, like, I don't spend a lot of time, I guess, outside of my actual activities preparing, because I live it. Does that make sense? Like, I'm doing it day to day, right? That is my preparation. I'm throwing myself in there, in real time.
So I'm trying to manage the time, speaking of in real time, and I know we have about 15 minutes left, and this is precious time. I want to maximize it. Right. I can't help it. I follow my curiosity. I wanted to get any high level thoughts looking back on what helped you with prospecting, like the art of opening the door. It could be at a strategic level, like I'm multi-threaded and the phone worked best. It could be tactical. Let's just hit on that real quick. And then I might want to ask you a little bit about the path. What you crushed it as an AE, you became a leader. And then I'll have a few other topics for you if that's okay. So, and just any high level thoughts looking back on what helped you become a good door opener and hit your open conversations as an SDR.
Productivity, I think, in terms of, really, and again, can also, be overused, but productivity and time management, and probably to round it out with a third, like, work to disqualify, right? Like, so in terms of productivity, right? Like, we run by a calendar already, right? Internal, external, like our days are run by our calendar, right? I got to a point where I had to block time off for certain activities. Now, here is like what I feel is the golden nugget here. Figure out where you are in your, what could be called your flow state for those activities. Meaning, if you're better on the phone in the morning, block that time. If your patch, again, you're working Eastern patch and you're in Pacific time, just using an example, right? Use the late afternoon to go do all your admin, because everyone's already obviously offline. But figure out what works best for your mindset and your productivity. Block those times to do tasks like prospecting versus admin, etc. And then hold yourself accountable. As a good reminder, I mean, I imagine a lot of SDRs or reps show up to their day, log in, have their coffee, and they're like, well, where do I even start? Remove that decision fatigue. Remove it. It's already in your calendar. Oh, cool. 9 to 11. This is my power hour of prospecting.
Skylar, I analyze, I can be a bit artistic. My mom's a professional portrait painter, but the reality is, with that context in mind, I've learned that sales isn't about having the perfect, like, most artistic email and script that's so well crafted. It's about taking action and that's a key thing for us, and showing up and being productive and taking consistent action. And that consistency is a superpower anyone can have. But yes, like, take pride and have some artistry in the messaging. But what you're reminding me of is block out the time and get in that rhythm and execute and learn through doing. That's what you said. You learn through just doing and living and breathing it. So that's one of my key takeaways from you.
Yeah. Analysis by paralysis or paralysis analysis, right? Like, don't overthink it. You're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. That's how we learn, right? No email is going to be perfect. No one wants to read a 3-paragraph chat GPT or pre-AI, over wordy email. Like, just be human. That's where we are today, right? People want to connect. They want to know that you understand their problems. And if you have a solution, they'll hear you out. If you're not, let's just say annoying about it, really, right?
The way I see it, if Skylar is reaching out more often, more consistently to the right people, one, he's going to get better at his messaging and even conversations on the phone. And two, he's going to outperform the people that just flat out didn't reach out as much. They didn't have as many opportunities to have more conversations that leads to opportunities and eventually revenue. So, Skylar, I'm going to shift us as we, land this plane. In a way, I think we're ascending and crescendoing though.
Yeah.
To just, I didn't necessarily expect to ask you about this, but account executive, we could have a whole podcast on succeeding as an AE, but a tip or two on things that actually made an impact once you got to the account executive closing level.
Resources, use them, right? What's the saying, right? We win together, lose together. And that's not so you can shift blame. Again, we don't know everything, right? We're not making mistakes. Don't try to control, your own sales cycle and keep everything siloed, right? I love that question. Hey, can I get your guidance on this, right? To, the SEs and, leadership. I just love that we're even at the amount of growth we've had, we're still relatively flat, where I can skip level. I can reach out to someone in a different business unit and ask them for help. Hey, look, for the mutual benefit of this organization, right? Our stock price or whichever, I need you to join a call and help me articulate this service for this. So yeah, definitely don't do it alone. Don't, like they say, don't eat alone. Use your resources. And again, I'll go back to, like, especially if you're an AE, you should be able to get out into the field. I can't tell you how much more impactful and valuable in-person conversations are, especially with partners, right? If you're familiar with, the channel, right? VARs.
Yes.
Right. All we have in life is relationships, personally and professionally. Go find a best friend, not with an ulterior motive, but go make a friend. You guys are both, have the same interest, solving problems, which, in our business is, equates to selling software. Go find someone who you have similar values, maybe even hobbies, and go crush it together and sell. I love winning big and having fun.
And man, is it great when you can win big and have fun with a friend, because I talked to someone who said, find a good solution consultant, customer engineer. And this one guy I talked to at Oracle, he would bring his SC everywhere, and some might say, oh, that's a crutch, but I think it's a mistake. Some sellers try to get too technical and do too much instead of focusing on being the best quarterback that can really understand the the prospects world, their strategic business initiatives, their challenges, and then map the right resources and bring them in to bring technical value when needed. But this one account executive at Oracle said, you know what, my solution consultant might hear things I don't hear because he listens through a different lens. So I just, it's fun to connect the dots and see the patterns of greats like yourself and this other account executive in this industry. And
I love that.
Thank you for the insight into account executive, at least giving us a taste of it, like a needle mover if we want to succeed as an account executive. There's more we can talk about, and if you want, chime in. Otherwise, just so you know, Skylar, where I'm going next, I want to ask you a little bit about your path to leadership.
Yeah.
I want to talk cybersecurity, the importance of a coach, and we'll round it out. So that's the rest of the roadmap.
Okay. I just want to double down on your point. I had an SE who, this is going to be hard, challenging to digest maybe, but I had an SE who I learned more from personally and professionally than almost anyone.
Wow.
And professionally, sales acumen, like this professional, just, I couldn't speak more highly about them. And, you're on the road together, you're strategizing together. To your point, you're listening for different things, and, just became, one of my best friends, certainly. I just can't say enough about that partnership. Arguably the most important partnership in SaaS sales, because if those two aren't on the same page, this isn't working, right? So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Skylar, you're getting me nostalgic now that I'm an entrepreneur. I do miss that.
You miss your SE? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same with, I was at Oracle, Google Cloud, selling platforms, just, and they have their own SaaS solutions, but I was like cloud infrastructure and databases and things. And then I sold for a managed service provider, professional services, a system integrator, and it's quite complex, and you're implementing platforms in cloud infrastructure. And in that last role, David Nettle, shout out to David, the best solution architect, a former CIO, and he would coach me up, man, to be a better seller. And I remember when we prepared for a meeting with the CIO of TransUnion, I was proud to break into that account. I got creative with my network. I found out my mom knew the wife of the CDO. Talk about getting creative from a prospecting perspective.
Got to go that deep. Yeah.
And so my thing I told you, Skylar, is how do you open doors? I'm really big on prospecting creatively like that. And so, but what I did to tie a bow on this is I prepared with my solution architect before the CIO meeting with a multi-billion-dollar company. You got to knock this one out of the park. And I walked through a dry run of my deck, and he gave me feedback, and I was able to simplify it. He told me he's so good, man. And I improved it. And at the end of the conversation, the C-level said this was a good use of my time, which is what I want to hear. And so thanks to David Nettles and a great solution architect, technical counterpart. And that's an example of how you can be a great tag team and learn from your technical counterpart.
Congratulations on that win. That's a fantastic story. And going back to use your resources, like he was a CIO. It's absurd not to run that presentation by him. Yeah.
And Skylar, another point is just how cool this path is that we get to connect with amazing people like that, like your leaders, like you, your technical counterparts. You never know what they did in a past life. Now, all right, let's just talk a little bit about the path to leadership, because I feel like leadership, maybe, I don't know, I heard an expression like, you don't choose leadership chooses you. And some even say, I've heard that said about sales. Like, I don't know if you can force it. Like, you can't force becoming a leader. And I bet there was people saw your capability, Skylar, to be a leader, and maybe people elevated you. But you know what? I want to hear from you. How do you know leadership's right for you, and what does the path there look like?
Yeah, I would hope so that is the case. I had some leaders, see some characteristics that would afford me the opportunity. Like, you never know, right? It's like anything in life, right? You have to try it. I do agree with that statement, right? Like, leadership finds you. In my case, that was the case, and I also embraced it. And I've done a lot of work on myself, and I've had paid coaches for many years. I have one now. So I thought that, it was great timing as well. Like, I was ready for it. But there's there's different leaders, right? Like there's leaders that can, run numbers and run forecasts, but a good leader's a good coach. I think that's really important. Someone that can, really understand what makes you tick, what, everyone's incentivized differently, right? And really, get close to you and work with you and not just follow up for updates on deals and, forecast stages. I think that's the difference.
So one question before we talk about the impact of you having a coach that has had on your career, just a broad question. You're at an amazing company, SentinelOne, in cybersecurity, that I think is one of the best waves to ride in tech sales. It's a category that's growing and it's critical, and you're rowing in a great boat, like at SentinelOne, a great company. Just high level, what drew you to this opportunity? What's great about this space with SentinelOne and cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think the obvious that you've already mentioned, right? Cybersecurity is really, unique because obviously, for the most part, at SentinelOne, certainly, like it's for profit, but you're helping solve like very, very important problems. Like there's other problems, infrastructure and data resiliency, but like we're talking problems that bring down cities, countries, oil pipelines, water systems. So that, and let's face it, career job security, right? So, cybersecurity, great vertical, but the people for sure. So there's the opportunity, but the people, you're showing up every day. And, I think it's just really important to surround yourself, like we talked about earlier, right, to great leadership. I could see that right away from my very first interaction when I was approached by SentinelOne, and we've grown. I don't know. I think I was employee 300 or 400 something, and we're probably close to 3,000 after our most recent acquisitions. And I can say, yeah, we still have a incredible culture with some of my favorite people I've ever worked with, and that's important.
You got me fired up about cybersecurity. And I mean, if I were to go back into tech sales, like that is a space I'd want to be in. And it's amazing how data and AI play into cybersecurity, so there's people in this audience, Skylar, that are probably chomping at the bit, like, oh my gosh, SentinelOne, I'd love to get in there, SDR AE. So guys, it's pretty cool to kind of learn a bit more about a wave you could ride and a great company that's out there. And, Skylar, we can get more into the opportunity of SentinelOne, but the reality is we're coming up on time, and that insight alone was already so great. So I wanted to ask you about the role a coach has played in getting you to the 7-figure clubs. I just see that pattern, Skylar. People like you, they're investing in coaches to really break through to higher levels.
Yeah, I remember, was it 2016, 2017, where I, went all in and spent a significant amount of money that frankly, we didn't as a family really have. We were in the middle of a lot of different things, but, I wrote a check and trusted the process because the mindset was, if this person has the roadmap, like has the map to where I want to go, why would I not pay to follow that and get coaching along the way instead of just trying to, maybe I'll get there, but try to navigate that myself. And it wasn't like, there wasn't, what this coach and other coaches have unlocked for me, again, are like internal challenges, mindset, different activities, things like that. Like it wasn't just like, hey, here's my financial goal, help me reverse engineer this, right? It's my blind spots, both personally and professionally. That is where I get the most value. And it's, I do it consistently, weekly, right?
Uncovering what you didn't know to unlock those quantum leaps in performance, because that's where the true growth lies. And a coach can shine light on those blind spots so that you can take those quantum leaps. So Skylar,
let me just finish that with one super important point. Like if you look at our daily lives, right, look at all the things that we invest in, right? Whether, stocks or your financial portfolio, start investing in you. Meaning, I have a I have a personal trainer. You don't have to see them every day. Maybe it's once a week, once a month, right? But I have a personal trainer, a coach for fitness. I have a coach for, executive mindset business, right? I often invest in meal prep for the days that, to help me bridge the gap, right? Like, start investing in you. You're your greatest asset. I want to leave that there.
Oh, that's so good. And let's roll that into how people can connect with you. Because I'd say connect with Skylar on LinkedIn, but you also have your own coaching you provide. And so just tell us, where can we connect with you, and how can we engage?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. LinkedIn. I do my best to manage it. If I don't message you back right away, I promise you I will get to it. I'm a firm believer of, again, having impact, not just striving for myself, but paying it forward. So yeah, use LinkedIn, and I look forward to connecting with everyone. And this has been an absolute blast. And I thank you for your time and for having me, Chris.
Skylar, thank you for reminding us that we can crawl out of the hole and absolutely transform our trajectory. We can take ownership for our results, knowing no one's going to save us, optimize our health, do the things needed to move up on this path, and ultimately invest in ourselves, the greatest investment we could make. Skylar, you're awesome. Thank you for sharing your insight, your inspiration very generously today. And to the audience, you're awesome too. I respect you for tuning in and investing in your personal and professional development. I encourage you to watch this multiple times and take notes and translate what you learn into action to produce your own results and celebrate those results with Skylar and I. And to your success in tech sales and in life, happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one.